Vector variables in EES can be used to make vector plots, and these plots can help visualize vectors in either 2 or 3 dimensions. Vector plots are a little bit more complicated than other types of plots because you need to not only specify the vector that you're plotting, but also its origin. You can make either 2D or 3D vector plots depending on the type of problem you are working on. In order to develop a vector plot, it's first necessary to have some vector variables defined in EES. So here I'm going to define 2 vector variables, A and B, and I'm going to assign them using the vector assign polar function, which specifies the magnitude and the angle relative to the x-axis. And because I'm entering an angle, I need to have also specified the unit system and the units used for angles, and I'll do that here to be degrees. I'm going to define another 2D vector R, and R is going to be the resultant of B added to A. So now I have 3 two-dimensional vector variables in my EES program, so I can make a vector plot. So let's select new plot window from the plots menu, and then select vector plots, and that will bring up the vector plot diagram that you can see here. So this list box, you can see, contains a list of all the vectors in my EES program. So here there are 3 of them, A, B, and R. And I can add these vectors or some subset of these vectors to my vector plot one at a time. And the way that you do that is you select the vector, you select the origin for the vector, and then you hit plot. And you can continue to do that until you're done plotting all the vectors you want to plot. And at that point, you'll hit the done button. So for each vector you add, you need to also specify its origin. You can do that in one of 3 ways. You can enter the coordinates directly. You can specify that you want to use the coordinates of another vector, or you can specify that this vector be placed at the head of the last vector that you plotted, which is really handy if you're making some kind of force polygon type of a plot. And of course that only works for vectors other than the first vector that you plot. And then the format of the plotted vector, like its color and the type of line that it's plotted in, can be adjusted down here by changing these controls. So I'm going to plot the vector A starting at the origin. So I'll select that and hit plot. And then I will plot the vector B, and I'll specify that it's going to start at the tip of A. And I'll hit plot, so that just added B. And then finally I'm going to plot the vector R, and I want it to start at the origin. And when I'm done here, I'm going to press the done button, and I get this vector plot. And of course it shows that the vector sum of A and B is the vector R. So 3D vector plots work pretty much the same as 2D vector plots, except that you get a 3D plot at the end of the process instead of a 2D one. So if I want to make a 3D vector plot, I'm going to need some 3D vectors. So again, I'm going to define 2 vectors, A and B. This time they're going to be 3D vectors, and I'll assign them. I'll use the vector assign function. And again, I'm going to define a 3rd vector R, which is going to be the vector sum of A and B. So now I'll select new plot window from the plots menu, and then vector plots. And that will bring up again this vector plot diagram. But this time, because I have 3D vectors in my EES code, I can select this 3D plot radio button. And here's the list of 3D vectors. And I can, again, plot them one at a time. Pretty much works the same as 2D vector plots, right? I add these vectors one at a time, and I also specify their origin. So here, let's make the same kind of plot. I'm going to add vector A, and I'll specify that it starts at the origin. Then I'll add vector B. I'll specify that it starts at the tip of A, and finally let's add vector R, and we'll start it at the origin, and then I'm done. So I'm going to see this resulting 3D vector plot. And the 3D vector plot is maybe a little more complicated to work with. You can spin it around and change the orientation by clicking on the plot and holding down the left mouse button. And if you want, you can also move these grids around to make it a little bit more clear maybe where the vectors start or where they're located. So these vector plots are really helpful with some types of mechanics problems where you might be trying to visualize things like forces or velocities.